Hi everyone, I'm going to try and do a quick video to show you how I deal with so many ends on a graph afghan. I've had a lot of people ask me what I do, and I have a method that cuts about in half how many ends that you might need in a graph. So this is my current project, and I just finished this panel, this piece right here. And on this one I'm doing separate pieces and then I'll sew them together at the end. And then what I do is I figure out all the colors I need, and then I roll my balls and yarn into balls. So I roll, like for the yellow, I rolled one big ball for as much as I think it's going to need for the whole panel. And it's a guessing game. Sometimes I do run out and have to add more in anyway. But so what I do, I roll one big ball, and then I roll that ball into two evenly sized balls, but I don't cut them. They're still attached. And so I have started this piece. The first two foundation rows I've done already. So try not to take too much time on here. So I'm at the point where I need to add the yellow in on the graph. So I take my attached piece, and when I go into the next stitch to pull up a loop, I drop the rust color and pull up the yellow. And it's 3 stitches of yellow. So what I'm going to do is carry the second strand behind. So I just hold on to it, keep it like horizontal there with it. And then on the first stitch you put the strand you're carrying in front of the hook. And then on the second stitch you put it behind the hook. And that helps weave that in. If you pull it, you can see how it weaves it in with it. So it's not just an extra loop hanging there. All right, so now I'm going to switch to my purple. So same thing, I have the 2 balls of yarn that are still attached. Go into the next stitch and pull up a loop in the purple. And then now I'm gonna try to carry the extra yellow and the extra purple along with me. So I want to grab the same yellow that I was carrying before, not the one that I did my stitches with. And then I have the second purple strand, so I'm going to carry both of them. Alright, so my next stitch, bring the 2 I'm carrying in front of the hook and pull it through, and then on the next stitch they'll be behind the hook and pull it through. Alright, so I'm going to go all the way across to where the next yellow starts. Oops. Helps if I actually put the yarn in the space. So they're in front of the hook. Here they're behind the hook. Behind. And people watching this, I'm assuming you already know how to do Tunisian crochet. I'm not going that far in this video. And this method can be used in single crochet also. Oh, it's a little different because you have to move your yarn from front to back, flip it when you're doing single crochet. With Tunisian crochet, it's actually a little simpler because it's all your yarn is at the back. So you don't have to deal with moving it back and forth when you turn, because you don't turn in Tunisian crochet. So, all right, I'm getting close to the end, so I have to pay attention. I have 3 stitches of rust on this end and 3 stitches of yellow. So I did one too many purple. So pull my purple. Now here I'm going to pick up, this is my second strand of yellow that I carried across. And it has 3 stitches. And here I'm picking up my rust that I left there from before. Get to the end. Okay, so now I have my first row with color changes, and if you turn it to the back, you can see how the 2 extra strands of yarn are woven in already. So I won't have to do that later, and I can kind of pull them a little if you want to help tighten them up a little bit, not real tight because you don't want it to be a different size than the rest of the piece. So okay, then I'm just going to bind off. Sort of do this and try and make sure I'm still in the frame. And what I do, I know a lot of people use the bobbins or something like that for their yarn that, on their graph. I don't like to do that. I might do it on a smaller afghan or maybe even a single crochet. I don't do a lot with single crochet on graphs. I just think Tunisian crochet is much neater, makes a much nicer looking graph, especially on the letters. So I really don't do much with single crochet, but I don't use the bobbins. I just do the balls like this, and I just put them in my bag, yarn bag, and work off of them, and they make a big tangled mess, and I just don't care. I ignore it. Sometimes they might get so tangled that I get stuck and I have to stop and unravel a few, but for the most part, I just don't let it bother me. When I'm all done and cut everything, then I roll them all back up again. And the nice thing about the size that I rolled these, because I'll need them again at the top, there will be enough left over of these that I can roll them in half again and then still use the same method on the next part, because there is a smaller section that I'll use these colors again, and I can still use the same method to help me reduce my ends. That's the whole point, is to help reduce ends. Okay, so now that's that first row with the color is done. I kind of wish I started with a bigger piece because it's kind of hard to show you because it starts curling. But okay, and then the one other thing I want to show you, and it isn't really the next step in this, but it's important to know how to carry a strand back the other way, because sometimes I might just have, you might use the same color in a, if they're like a couple stitches apart, like for instance on here, this middle section where this curl comes in, I can just carry my yellow across and not roll a separate ball of yellow for that middle part. This is too close again. All right, so on this middle section here, where I'm going to have, this loop coming in, I'll just carry my yellow back and forth across. So you need to know how to do that too. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos where people, they'll just leave the yarn like a big long loop like this, and they just leave it like that. Like the yellow has to come over to here, and instead of doing it like I did, weaving it, they'll just leave it like this long thing, and then you have to deal with hiding that at the end, and that's so much extra work. So to me, it's not worth it. So, all right, I'm just going to do a pretend like I have, I'm going to do a couple purple. I'll bring this yellow with me and do a couple purple stitches. And then switch back to the yellow. I'll take my other purple with me. I'll do one more. Okay, so now we'll just pretend I'm at the end of the row and I'm going back the other way. So now I have a separation between, rather than starting another ball of yarn, I just carried the yellow over and did some stitches, and I carried the purple over and did some stitches. So now I want to go back the other way when I bind off, and still in a manner that weaves them in and doesn't just leave a loop laying there. So the first stitch, I'll bind off the first yellow. Okay, so now my purple is here. I'm going to pull the purple over the top of the yellow to the left and bind off the next stitch, and then take the purple and go back over the top of the yellow, bind off the next stitch, and back. So I just weave it back and forth on top of the yarn that I'm binding off, and back over the top. It's actually easier to do this in single crochet to hide it this way, but here's what it looks like on the top. All right, so now I'm at the point where I'm switching back to the purple. So I'm going to drop the yellow, but over the top of the purple, and grab my purple and do one stitch, then come back with the yellow to the left over the top of the purple, and then I'll back to the right with the yellow, and that's my last purple stitch. So I drop the purple, pick back up the yellow, okay, so now that little section, I didn't go all the way to the end, but you kind of get the idea. So I'll turn it around, you can see what it looks like. So it's still Tunisian crochet. You're never going to have a neat back no matter what. That's just the name of the game. It's not like single crochet or a corner to corner graph that could be reversible. It's not the case with Tunisian. But so here's my back, and everything I've done so far is weaved in. So that's not something I'm going to have to do later. Okay, so then to see the effect of how this comes to play in here, the piece that's already finished. Like I said, I have not hidden any ends in this yet. That's just a little flower that's just a few stitches, so I did that separate. But so I had 2 balls of yarn for my yellow here that are attached, and I'm carrying them up. And then here's my purple. And I did do two more balls of yarn for the centerpiece on the purple. I probably won't do that on the next section because I really could have just carried it across back and forth with this. There's only 2 stitches separating it on the yellow part, so it's not very much. And then when I get to the top of that section, there's another little flower, so just ignore that. So here's the end of the pink section here. It's the smaller swirl. So I have 2 ends here. Normally you would have 2 at the beginning and 2 at the end, so that's 4. I only have 2. So I cut how many ends I have to hide in half. And then here, the same with the purple. Here's the 2 on the center swirl, which are the same 2 that were down at the bottom. I carried them up the side, and then this is the other 2. So I had 4 balls of yarn. Instead of 8 ends to hide, I only have 4 ends to hide. So then the other thing I just want to mention, like this part here where the darker purple ends here, and then it doesn't pick back up again until up here. I carry that up with me, the second strand, so I don't have to cut it and then reattach it. So I carry that up here on the side of the lighter pink, and then pick it back up here. And then the same with let me show you in the other section, because it's a darker purple. It's a little easier to see. So it was the same thing. I had 4 strands of purple running up. So they would have started here. And then I had 2 going up here, and then 2 in this centerpiece. And then when I get to here, once this part's done, I only need 1. So here's my 1 that I'm working with. Here's the second one. I'm just carrying that up the side of the light pink. And then the other 2 strands that were left, I'm carrying up the side. I brought them across and I'm carrying them up. It's a little bit neater if you can carry it up your side to weave. You just do, like I said, you wrap it on the needle front to back, and I just carry it up. Sometimes I'll drop one and miss it completely and end up having to cut it and add a new one because I don't want to go that far back to unravel it. But you do see, you can see where it's running up, but it's just part of the life of Tunisian. You're always going to have things that don't look great on the back side. So now it's the same thing. I get to the top. All I have left, the 2 light pink instead of 4, my 4 dark purple instead of 8, and 2 yellow instead of 4 yellow. So that, ignoring these little flowers that I did separate, this cut almost completely in half how many ends that I have to hide on that piece. So that's it. I hope everybody can get some use out of this. And sorry if it's a bad video, but I tried.